brought a Shane Dawson real person fan fiction Star Wars crossover to this podcast, what then? Huh?
Start your sublight engines. It's time for RuPaul's Pod Race, a queer Star Wars podcast. Welcome to our discussion of episode 7 of The Acolyte, Choice. My name is Claudia. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me on social media at Kaludia Says, Kaludia Says. And my gender this week is Master Soul failing his mandatory cultural competency training.
I mean,
where?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, like.
Because the Jedi are supposed to be diplomats. It's kind of like a part of their job that they go around and they meet and interact with new cultures. So him being that fucking bad at it, girl, we gotta put you back in DEI training. Like,
okay. To be fair, am I saying that he did not pay attention to DEI training in the Zoom call? Yeah. However, they weren't on a diplomatic mission. They were on like a research mission. So maybe
he's a girl in STEM. He wasn't in.
This is why we need humanities classes.
Yes!
Without them, we have Master Soul.
Master Soul is a science girly. And he has no cultural competency. This is why we need a girl in STEAM.
I'm Noah. My pronouns are he, him. You can find me on social media pretty much anywhere at the Jewish Jedi. And my gender this week is Vape Goddess, Mother Aniseya. Unfortunately, I did write that down the second she turned into a cloud of smoke, like before she even got ran through, like, and am I certain as to how you can get ran through by a lightsaber when you're like the output of a puff bar? No, but that doesn't really matter. I literally saw her and I was like, she's tearing it up.
I would like to see her do some vape tricks. Like, I would love to see her blow a smoke ring.
Here's the thing, I feel like she could. The problem with like her as a character is I don't really care what she's doing because she's just so stunningly beautiful, and I'm like, whatever you say, like call her Strap the Barash Vow the way I'm taking it. Like, I really wherever we have to go.
Hello?
I was gonna say Soul gay as shit. Out the way, gay boy, I'm gonna get it.
Literally.
My name is Melvin. I use they, them pronouns. You can find me on social media at Melvin Culpa. And my gender this week is Jedi Master Struggle.
So true.
No, because...
No notes.
No notes.
He's Mr. Struggle. I'm sorry. Like, I don't...
The fuck is his problem?
We can't talk about what his problem is because we'd be here for a year. Like, we have so much to get through.
That's true.
My name is Ollie. I use any pronouns. You can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh. That's fresh with a PH. And my gender this week is Indara's vacuum cleaner, because I thought in the moment when they were scanning the forest with, I guess, what were metal detectors, I really thought they were vacuum cleaners, and I was like, that's an interesting way to like clean up the forest.
Indara with her fucking Dyson.
I can't. Wait, that's so good. Her house is like,
dang.
It's really dusty out here. Let's see what we can do about that.
And she's like, okay, Torvin, you collect some moss or whatever. I gotta clean this shit up.
I do feel like she would use a vacuum like it was running the Navy. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's something that I was getting from Trinity. I am going to call her Trinity for the rest of the time that I see her. But yeah, I loved her little... I did think it's funny just because, like, I love when science fiction does, like, geological surveys because they're so far removed from what those end up normally being. I'm like, okay, so we got some moss in a box, and then fucking Indara over here has got her Dyson out, and she's like, we've got to get this... we got to clean this forest, Boots. Like...
Do you think she has like a Dyson Airwrap for her bangs?
I absolutely do. I actually think that like any kind of hair dryer she owns is like the fanciest possible option for hair that ultimately ends up completely straight.
Yeah. That's so real. So do we want to talk about this episode of The Acolyte? Because that shit was crazy.
That shit was crazy. I thought that this episode was quite straightforward, and then I went online and people did not get it, and I was like,
common problem.
Oh.
Common problem.
Yeah.
Like yes, there's a lot in this show that has like nuance, but then this show, like, not there's a lot of the show that tries to have nuance, but then this episode I felt like spelled some shit out in words multiple times, and people are like, and this is why the Jedi are like this, and I'm like, well, I think the point is that the Jedi are not like this, because the rest of the Jedi, Indara and the Council, were like, let's not do that, and then Sol and then Torben were like, but what if we did?
I will say, I do think it's a little funny how much time we wasted that we'll never get back, being like, the Jedi would never kidnap a child, and then this episode Sol is like, I've got to kidnap that child. And like, I understand that there are some people who are like, he had good intentions, blah blah blah, but so did Lindsay Lohan, and when she was in the street while she was on Instagram Live, like, that is still attempted kidnapping. Like, it is what it is. Am I saying that Sol is like Lindsay Lohan? A little bit.
Yes.
Lindsay Solhan, that's his full name. I was gonna say, I think that that's like a really interesting point, and I think it's kind of a good one, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, the Jedi steal kids. I think it's like, actually, you see, because the Council and Indara and basically like all of the grown-ups on the mission other than Sol were like, fuck no, like, let's leave these kids here because that's their culture and that's like what's happening right now. Like, the Jedi don't steal kids. It's just Sol. I think it also shows, like, this is the sense of, like, it's not a problem with the Jedi collectively. And, like, there are problems with the Jedi. I'm not saying the Jedi are perfect or anything, but stealing kids is not one of them. The problem is the individualist perspective of Sol, where he keeps saying, like, I want the twins to be safe. I want Osha to make her choice. But it's not really about that. You know, as is pointed out in the episode, it's about him. And I think also it was very, like, poignant and very pointed when Indara was like, that's why I have a Padawan and you don't. Because I'm like, okay, I'm getting vibes that he, like, really wants a Padawan, and it was like, they will not give me one, but maybe I can take this slay little girl and we can be besties. And I don't think it's, like, that simple, because I do think that he thought he had good intentions, but I agree when Indara was like, this is a selfish pursuit, and it shows, like, okay, this is why you have the Jedi Code. This is why the Jedi forbid attachment and forbid like dangerous attachment that becomes like that is uncontrollable, and why the Jedi have strict rules about like how you conduct yourself, especially if you're like an adult who's out in the field. Like, it was interesting. I almost feel like this was a cautionary tale.
Well, and people were doing a lot of comparisons to different parts of Star Wars, and I think that's one thing that I do enjoy about this show is again, it's relating to the themes. And some people were saying, oh, it's like when Qui-Gon took Anakin. I don't think that that's the case, because then they were like, oh, because that led to the Jedi's downfall. It actually didn't lead to the Jedi's downfall. Order 66 was in the plans before Sidious, you know, even found out about the Chosen One. He was like, well, I can also just groom the Chosen One to be on my side, and that'll also help me out. But the Jedi were going to die no matter what. But I will say it's very similar to how Anakin, like, he feels something in the Force. He has Force visions about Padme dying, or Sifo Dyas, who made the fuck-ass clone army. He had foresight visions that there was going to be and then basically they felt something in the Force, and their personal interpretation of it by themselves was wrong, and they didn't like consult other people, and they went with their own emotions with their interpretation of what they felt in the Force. Because I saw some people be like, you know, well, what Sol felt in the Force was real, and it's like, what he probably felt was that Osha did want to go before he even offered, like, she wanted to go, but he misinterpreted that because he couldn't separate it from his own attachment. And also I thought it was very similar to Anakin, whatever, from his own attachment to his idea of being a savior, which, as we've can see in this episode, is not every Jedi. It's just some Jedi. And like, as we see with Anakin, that's a fault. He's different from the rest of the Jedi. Or some people obviously compared it to Elzar cutting Chancey Yarrow, like, you know, stuff like that.
No, I gotta cut in. At least Chancey, listen, I have my major beef with how the end of The Fallen Star was written, and the further we get, the less I honestly blame Elzar for that, and the more I blame, like, the writing decision to have him do that, because it just felt weirdly out of character with how he had been portrayed and how his issues with rage had been, and, like, with the issues with the dark side had been portrayed. But the other thing, too, is they knew that there were Nihil operatives on the ship, and Chancey had worked for the Nihil, so I'm like, okay, I still think it was fucked up and he shouldn't have done that, but at least you can see how he got there
Yeah.
Soul just did that because he was like,
Yeah.
I have to kill. Like,
Soul,
he just
and,
did
like,
that.
his set of decisions in this episode, and I didn't even really particularly like this episode for like a couple of reasons. I was like, it's fine. I feel like for me, so much of the show is like, it's fine. But I will say, in the second episode, yeah, I think that's when they originally show like this series of events unfolding, and he like is with Osha and is like doing the test, and I was like, I'm getting some like sinister energy here. I was right. This was extremely sinister, and his intentions were extremely sinister, and his ass was like, I saw that child and I'm gonna kidnap her. Like, and mind you, I understand that like his own internal emotional logic was not driven out of like a sense of let me nab that, but it doesn't really matter at that point because like that's what happened, you know. And I don't know. I also will say Torben in this episode, I get that he's like a teenager or something, and so teenagers behave this way, but I will be honest, I was just like, you're a fool, okay? Because right now in my lifetime, if someone was like, you get to take a 7-week nature vacation with Carrie Ann Moss, I would literally be like, where do I sign? And his husband was like, wah, I want to go back to the city. You don't want to have a nature staycation
He's
with
me.
Carrie Ann Moss? Like, get in the woods.
He's me. With Comac Vitus.
Yeah, because you
I'm
know
not
what?
talking about that. I'm talking
No.
about Carrie Ann Moss. Stop decentering women's stories, Claudia.
Okay, but you know who else was like, I need to go back to Coruscant?
Reed Silas.
Reed Silas, that's correct.
And you
Melvin,
know
what were you
who
gonna
did
say?
And you know who did some fuck shit? And we don't talk about how he did some fuck shit because he ran into the woods before he could truly get in trouble for it. That's right, Comac Vitus. No, the energy that Soul had this episode, I was like, oh my god. Comac Vitus is rolling in his fucking proverbial grave. Like, what the... like, it's so dark. Because I'm like... no, because you know Soul would have been bringing those fuck-ass statues back to Coruscant. I'm telling you, this I know.
No, it's so fucked because I think like right when the Acolyte had like first come out, like when we had like the first episode and some production shots, I saw Indara and Soul and I was like, welcome back Orla and Comac, and I'm like, oh fuck, actually kind of like welcome back Orla and Comac negative in a bad way. I do love, also to the point about Torben that I want to make really quick, I think that like I do agree that I'm like, dude, I get like he needed to get a grip, but it's also like I get he was complaining in the beginning, whatever, but it was clear that like he went, Aniseya did some shit that made him have an issue. And like, I thought it was pretty heavily implied that like when he went to go do that, to be like, this is our ticket home, like that was under the influence of them. Like that was not, that was not his own organic thought process. But that's why I'm like, especially because considering they knew that like they didn't know the extent of like what had happened to him. But I'm like, the fact that Soul was not like, okay, we need to think, like Soul low-key, high-key took advantage of that boy's vulnerability.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that Torben was like, oh, he was right or he didn't do anything wrong, because obviously he did, but I'm like, clearly there was something going on in his mind that made him feel bad style. And Soul was not like, let's interrogate why this boy is acting like this. He was like, I'm gonna use this to my advantage.
I agree with that. I will say though, I think the whole scene with like his little foray onto the psychic plane with Vape Goddess was like, I understand that like I basically, for me, I don't take that to mean that he was in any way like psychically influenced, because she was only pointing out things that he already thought. And just the thing about like, I feel like the dark side in Star Wars, which is also one of my gripes with it, is it's like you keep brushing up against interesting things but never really expanding on them, is like it's only working with emotions that are already there and kind of like exacerbating them. But I don't think that he was like influenced to feel that way. I think he was a teenager who just wanted to go back to his house, which like understandable. I think you're a clown because you're in the woods with Carrie Ann Moss and like who doesn't want to be there. But you know, I don't think that he was like influenced per se. I think that he just had someone sort of pay attention to him and be like, here are your needs. And he was like, yeah, those are my needs. How might I facilitate that? But he's a teenage boy who's not going to make an educated decision. And then absolutely, Soul is like, I can use this vulnerable teenage boy to my advantage because Soul fucking sucks. Like, low key. I'm like, wait, you're kind of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I saw people online being like, oh, everything was Torben's fault or everything was his fault. And I'm like, it's pretty clear
Torben
everything
does not
is
have
Soul's
a driver's
fault.
license yet. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, but like, it can't
It's
be that
very
boy's
clearly-
fault.
No, because I don't know if I said it in the first episode, whatever, when I was like, we were like, are the Jedi cops? No, they're mandated reporters. And unfortunately, he is giving overzealous CPS social worker in this moment. And not even that. He is giving, like, person who's like, I need to adopt a child from a foreign country to save them. Like, that's what Soul is giving right now.
Because this is the other side of Marva Andor that we're not afraid to talk, that everyone's afraid to talk about, is the idea of being like, at least with Marva, she was like, this child is literally gonna get like actually murdered and killed to death if I don't take him. But Soul was like, I did write down, literally, Soul saw these girls and just saw the worst parts, and I was like, oh my god, he doesn't have context. He literally just fell out of a coconut tree. Like, he does not have the context of everything that he is and everything that came before. He does not know what is going on. He is not context pilled. He is coconut maxing.
Oh my god. That is something that the detail, the final nail in Soul's coffin for me was when May runs up and he's like, OSHA! I low-key think that you're starting shit, Soul. What's going on there?
I will say, I think a piece of people mixing them up a lot also is that they are literally one soul split in two. And if he feels a connection to her in the Force, because he doesn't know her well enough to be able to differentiate her from her sister, if he feels a connection to her in the Force, it's probably because they're they are one soul split into two. I also love how people were so surprised by that, and I was like, that is a pretty common belief in a lot of cultures of the like that like twins are like one soul split into two people. So like this showing up in Star Wars didn't surprise me, but I was like, I saw that as a theory. I also saw a thing about how the way that May repeats what the Ascension is about is like she's misremembering.
Yeah, that was on the Star Wars website.
Yeah.
In like some of the reference stuff that they post after every episode of The Acolyte. But originally it was Mother Aniseya was like, you need to sacrifice a part of yourself to do this. And instead she was like, sacrifices have to be like, you have to sacrifice people to do that, misconstrued it.
I will say Soul not recognizing OSHA. I think that is one of like the more damning moments of this episode. And I was giggling and laughing when I saw it. Like I was like, yeah, die. But I think here's my thing. I don't really know if Soul felt anything for OSHA in the Force. I think he just made that shit up because he wanted a Padawan. Like I think the premise that he felt anything legitimate and was like, I'm just doing what I know. I'm like, no, I think you saw a bunch of people who you didn't understand in a cultural practice you have no familiarity with, saw two children and were like, opportunity knocks. And I don't know. I'm not trying to make like the soul is evil argument. I think that's reductive and also
you should.
No,
he sucks.
I think that's reductive and also really boring. But like, I am gonna make the argument that I'm not taking what he says at face value. I think he was like, oh my god, a diva, let me grab her. Like, he's very Lindsay Lohan like that.
Jedi Master Lindsay Lohan?
Her ass would not make it to the rank of master. I'm sorry to say it.
Oh, and wait. And speaking of making it to the rank of master, I am so sorry. I guess Soul is not a master at this point. He is just a knight. I guess he is like shit tier because you're telling me with all of his Jedi training, because there's a lot of Jedi who like their first thing is not to like whip out the sword and kill people. Like they have a lot of training to get that. And he like, yes, he was startled by the fact that she turned into fucking smoke and the child disappeared. But like his first thing is I take the sword out and I kill somebody. Like maybe you are also not good at your job. Like you're badly trained. And you are a fully graduated knight?
He's just harshing the vibe because it's like she just tried to light up a little ciggy outside the bar and he fucking struck her down. Like, I don't understand.
And to be fair to them, they did have a bunch of beautiful women with crossbows pointed at them, which I think is the opposite of a problem for me personally. But I can get why it's like, okay, they're in defense mode, but I'm also like, brother, you are a Jedi. You gotta be better than this.
And you went into their home. You snuck into their fucking house.
That is something I also want to talk about. Because one, I am a little curious why Mother Aniseya decided that becoming smoke was the vibe. Like, I figured it had to do with something like her ability to like move and like maybe like put out the fire or something. But I was just like, huh, okay. And then she died. Which also she ate. Like, I cannot overstate. She was like, you guys? It's gonna be over for you in a major way because of bullshit like this. So I was like, okay, goodbye, queen, in the arms of an angel. But I think another thing that I'm curious about to that same end is that, first of all, I don't think that Mother Coral died. I think that her and the coven are probably okay, mostly because like Osha did not immediately find the stranger. Like, they have not been chilling since she was a child, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. And I think it would make more sense that May is so like, I don't know. May already seemed to have much more of an affinity, or like, was a lot more like her mother Coral. So like, I think it makes sense that Mother Coral continued to raise her and make her this kind of like this person that she is.
Especially without Mother Aniseya there, if it was Mother Coral and whoever was left of the coven.
PhilosophyTube radicalized her.
Exactly. Also, I just have to say the line where Mother Aniseya is, and when they're like, you have to choose between being, you know, a witch and a mother, and she's like, and I choose mother, and you're like, nobody has slayed that hard in Star Wars ever.
I mean, I kind of liked when Charlize Theron was like, don't you want to go crazy? Don't you want to go apeshit to this like 8-year-old? I enjoyed that. I also love when she was like, fight me, and like yelled at Soul, and it was like, okay, go off, queen. I love that for you.
Her wife he just killed her fucking wife. I was like, yeah, I think you should kill him.
Had she died?
Yeah,
I guess she had.
Yeah, she had died.
I will say
she did wicked stab her.
Her death scene is sort of funny to me because she takes like 14 whole seconds to like die after getting genuinely run through the fucking spinal cord, which I think was hilarious. Amazing directorial choice, no notes.
Noah when a TV show isn't exactly the same as real life.
That is not what I'm saying. I'm thinking like when most people get stabbed with a lightsaber, they kind of just like, oh, that's it. And she was like, no, I've got a couple parting words for you, bitch. I'm gonna be holding on just to be a cunt about it. Like, I respect her for that.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, honestly, if it were him, I'd die faster to get away. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to stand there with like all of this. I will say, in terms of direction, I like this episode a lot better than I think the other ones thus far. I like also like the fights were kind of crazy boots. Like, I have never really seen like because I was like, okay, we're getting like a Wookiee fight. I wonder like how kind of like out there they'll go with it. And I was very like impressed with how it looked. I actually really enjoyed it. I also was the entire time like fearing for their bones because I was like, Wookiees are canonically strong as fuck. And when he like grabbed like Soul's wrist, I was like, in another timeline, this would be a scene where he gets that snapped in half.
Okay, he will never be Loden Greatstorm, I have to say.
Okay.
He will never have a bone break in such a magnificent way as Loden Greatstorm.
Would never be associated with these flops. He would never do that to himself.
Loden Greatstorm would be like, okay, this is not a good situation we are in.
Okay, Claire just slipped me a note that says, well, if you had a cult that you cared about, but you don't, so you won't. And I just
Bruh.
thank you for the Kim Kardashian joke. I feel like that was Mother Aniseya, but I need to speak about Soul being like, I'm choosing one child, and like obviously I'm choosing one child over the other. Some people were like, oh, it's like when Qui-Gon chose to save Anakin and not his mother. I'm like, that's exactly the same. But again, some people did point this out. Why did he try to lift 2 pieces of a bridge when he could just levitate 2 small children?
Because he's dumb as hell. That is the
He
only...
is dumb.
I will die on this hill. Not enough Jedi think about their ability to manipulate the Force in terms of telekinesis, okay? Because if Jean Grey were there... Hold on. Stay with me for this. If Jean Grey were there, both of those divas would have been floating, and so would have the entire bridge. But Soul could never hope to wield the Phoenix Force because he is what? A flop.
I agree 100%, because the other thing too is if Jean was there, she would also be floating. They would all be, no one would be on the ground. But I think the thing with Soul is that I'm like, okay, that is like sealing the fact that it's like, oh, you really did not actually care about keeping the twins safe, motherfucker. But I think also it's like, in terms of holding the bridge and that, I am like, who I think would have been like, wait, I'm gonna do the smart thing? Master fucking Indara. Let's talk about her, because I think some of y'all owe her an apology. Someone on this podcast, people on this podcast might owe her an apology.
Who?
I don't know, someone who said, I just can't trust Carrie-Anne Moss.
I can't trust Carrie-Anne
In one of
Moss,
our first episodes of coverage.
I'm okay standing by that.
Listen, I'm just saying, I feel like in a lot of ways this show is like Memento, except for Carrie-Anne Moss, I guess, is Guy Ritchie. Well,
okay, so no,
Is Amanda Stenberg maybe kind of like Guy Ritchie?
I feel like maybe
I
feel like you're losing yourself in the Memento.
Well, because that's why I don't trust Carrie-Anne Moss generally. It's not because of her vibes. It's just because of Memento. I'm sorry. If you haven't seen Memento 2002, what are you doing? Like, I'm sorry, it's a movie in reverse and everything is deeply confusing and we've got to kill John G. And I guess
That's just like Charlie said. Girl, so confusing. Okay, but the point that I have is I'm like, okay, the girls are like, the Jedi are the villains, the Jedi are the bad guys. I'm like, the actual Jedi. And I feel like in that moment, Indara's like, this is my mission. Like, I am the master here. Like, I'm the one who's in charge, and I'm the one who wants to, like, because I feel like people always talk shit about the Jedi Council, and are like, they don't want to act, but I feel like this show is, like, a reason why it's like, maybe we should, like, maybe the council acts like that because they are not informed. And I think that there are, like, a lot of issues with the Jedi Council. I'm not saying, like, oh, the Jedi Council is good, but I'm like, maybe it's little seeds of mistrust and little seeds of not working, not, like, dishonesty and individualism that fuel the council's downfall and fuel the, like, again, as Claudia said, it's hard to say anything fuels the downfall of the Jedi, because it's like Order 66 and, like, the genocide of the Jedi was planned far in advance and it was going to come one way or another. So but that being said, I do think it's an interesting look into, like, hey, maybe we really, especially with something so severe, maybe we should include the council in.
Also, Indara is really representation for people who hate their coworkers and whose coworkers make their day horrible, because not only did he fuck up her mission and they didn't follow any rules, any protocol, anything, but also, like, he put her Padawan in danger. She's like, my Padawan, his brain is being invaded by a witch and is doing crazy bullshit because you decided to invade a cult instead of knocking on their door and being like, hi, hello, we're at your house. Also, great hyperspace disaster mention.
Yeah. I will also say, I mean, I feel like people who are, going on here and being like, this show proves that the Jedi are the real villains. They're the real bad guys. I feel like for a lot of you, you're still operating on a kindergarten level of morality where I have to, like, use rainbow colored magnets to spell it out for you. It's more complicated than this is the good person and this is the bad person. Like, I think that you reduce a lot of potentially, though, in my opinion, not really fulfillingly interesting elements of a show like this when you're like, are the Jedi evil? Are the witches evil? Is this random Sith Lord who has nice shoulders evil? And it's like, okay, how about you just watch the goddamn show and stop forming stupid opinions? Like, I don't know. Mind you, I don't think that a lot about this episode or the show thus far for me personally is executed very well. And I have thoughts about why that is. We'll hashtag get into it in a bit, but like, I think you have to give them credit where credit is due, and that they tried to make the moral question of like who is to blame when shit like this happens in this universe a bit more clear cut, or a bit less clear cut and a bit more interesting about like, yeah, people make choices. Like, they comprise this religious order, but like they are, like I think Ollie was saying earlier, like they are individuals. Like they are people who are making decisions that then screw things up. And like that's interesting for a narrative. But it's not as simple as like, these ones are the real bad guys. Like, are you for genuinely?
I would actually be interested to know, Noah, what your thoughts on the quality of the show. For me, I go back and forth because I can't really call it, like, there's so many shows now where I'm like, yeah, this would be better if this was 12 episodes or more, and the episodes were a solid 40 to 60 minutes, instead of the wide range of this, or we're cutting an episode in the middle and it's 8 episodes and whatever. Like this happens with so many shit that I don't even think of it anymore. I'm like, yeah, they're working within the what they can work within. I will say there's been a lot of people like comparing to Andor and being like, well, Andor is the best. And I would like people to refer back to our conversations on Andor, because Andor has its own problems. It is not the pinnacle. I love Andor, and I might like it more than this show. I'm not sure yet. I like them both, but it is very weird when people are like, well, Andor's perfect. I'm like, well, girl, I don't think it is. But
I think a lot of y'all can't handle that most things are simply not perfect. I wish you could deal with that, but
yeah.
alas. I will say, like, broadly, my criticism of the show is, like, I get that they're operating within, like, constraints of a studio, and so I want to, like, give that leeway, because it's, like, it's not entirely up to you. Production is not, unfortunately, the decision of the people who are, like, making the show most of the time nowadays. However, I feel that it is critical to the medium of television that episodes be able to stand on their own as well as coalesce into a broader narrative. And I feel like that's something that this show specifically, and I think more broadly, like a lot of Disney television shows in recent times fail at. Like it's complete as a season, kind of, but like as episodes, the structuring is very weird, specifically with this. And I want to say, I love the narrative device of unreliable narrators. I think it really does add like potentially a lot of intrigue, a lot of emotional character beats. The decision to like delay, for example, May's reactions to this story to what is the season finale too. So it's like you have a lot of other ground to cover. Kind of, for me, really undercuts any kind of emotional shifts that could have been there. And there, in my opinion, weren't a lot to begin with, because like, what does this information fundamentally change about our perception of the characters? Not much to me. Like, we knew that everyone was keeping a big secret because they probably did something bad, and they did, and they covered it up. Their motivations for that were a little different than I thought, but like not so much as it reframes the other episodes, which I think for unreliable narration to be effective, it needs to change how you look at the characters and you look at the storytelling. And for me, this just didn't really do that.
I will just really quick. I think that everything wants to be a movie, and instead of making TV, people are just making long movies that are split up into parts. If this had been a 2-hour long movie and you cut out all of the unnecessary stuff, you cut out, I would hate to say, but you cut out some of the characters that were not quite as central to the plot, or gave them like a couple lines. Like, you can make a movie character a lot more endearing in 5 minutes than you can make a television character endearing in 20 minutes. I think that they want a movie, but because TV is the thing now and streaming is the thing, they want a TV show. And this would have done so much better, I think. It's hard to say because I am actually 100% on the same page in that I think that every episode should stand alone, and unfortunately I feel like this show has not delivered on that, but I'm still interested enough in seeing like where the story goes, because I'm also like, what the fuck is gonna happen? Like, what is even the point of all of this been? Like, that's what I'm interested to see. But this would have been really good as like a movie or a series of movies, like a trilogy, you know, like
And I've been thinking about this in the context of, like, where does Star Wars go from here? Because for me, I'm not interested in, like, the sequel era or anything. This would have been... This unfortunate part of the media landscape for me is that in theory, I agree. This would definitely have been really cool as a trilogy of movies to get new people that go to the theater, whatever. I think investors and other people would not roll for that, and that's why we don't get shit like that anymore, even within a franchise. To like, I would say, like, for example, once we saw Kamir be sexy, the jump from a lot of people are watching this and like some people are saying that it's good, whatever, to I'm literally going to watch this. I've never seen a Star Wars before, which is what people did for Din Djarin as well. Like the long tail of a TV show is what got people involved, and unfortunately that would not happen with a movie. And I think that's just the media landscape that we have today, and I think that's actually very sad because I think this story would fit well as a movie. And, like, there's so many examples of this, right? Like, the Obi-Wan series was supposed to be a movie. Initially, it was supposed to be a movie. I think it would have done well as a movie. Or a trilogy. It should have been a trilogy. I would have been fucking exhausted. But this would have been cool because it would be like, we have a trilogy of movies just like the trilogy whatever in this other era. And that would have been cool. But, like, we can't have that. Maybe the problem was capitalism. We can't have that because of capitalism. But it's also, like, and I said this when I saw, like, Dune or whatever, where I was like, everything I see is like every movie I see should be a TV show, and every TV show I see should be a movie. And also, and there's a lot of times where people are like, oh, like I think that this should be this or whatever. And I'm like, unfortunately, the medium of television is being lost. Like the medium of television, there's some things where it's like, no, like some things should be told in a serial format, and
yeah, 100%.
we're losing them. Like,
yeah, I mean, not to talk my shit about Interview with the Vampire, but I'm gonna plug it for a second because if you really do want like compelling, well thought out television, watch Interview with the Vampire. And what I mean by that is every episode of that 2-season show is itself a compelling hour watch. Like, it's an encapsulated story that's interesting regardless of its placement in the larger narrative, but it also really works in the larger narrative. And a lot of that show and the book and the movie, for that matter, we don't talk about the movie, but, Kirsten Dunst, I'm so sorry you were with those horrible men. We'll get you out of there, girl. Is about unreliable narration. It is about memory being sort of a thing that we can accidentally falsify, but there are a couple key differences in why it works, and this for me doesn't. One of those is that you, the viewer, are not actually really entirely clear on which memories are false and which ones are true. And so when those reveals happen, it is like a shock. And I'm not saying that, everything needs to be a twist. I'm not one of those people who's like, you spoiled this, now I can't watch it. I don't think it's that problem here. It's more so just like, what do the reveals in this episode materially change about the previous episodes? And for me, it's like they kind of don't. It's like we know Soul had bad motivations to do what he's done, but like we already knew that he was a person racked by guilt over his bad decisions. Same with the other Jedi stationed here. So the actual details of that don't alter much. Like, to me, the most interesting reframing is the fact that like May actually kind of like panics when she lights that fire instead of like standing like Megan and like evilly like watching it burn before trying to incinerate her sister. And like that's interesting, but it lasts for 4 seconds and we get no response to it, right? We don't hear May's side of this story. We obviously don't know like how Osha would. And it's like, I don't know. I think that again, this show, like so much of Star Wars, like so much of Disney properties, keeps brushing up against interesting concepts and then just kind of like leaving them where they lie. And the last thing I'll say about that is I saw a tweet, I unfortunately don't remember from whom, that was like Star Wars and the MCU used to be you were writing a story in a cinematic universe and that story was its own thing, right? The example this tweet uses, like Captain America the Winter Soldier is a heist movie.
I just saw
love
that
this
tweet. Yes, I was looking at that, yeah.
And it's like Captain America the Winter Soldier is like a 1970s, like it's like a spy thriller, right? And, Ant-Man is a heist movie. And now they're all trying to be Marvel movies. And I feel like, and the quote tweet of this was about Star Wars, and it's like Star Wars used to be stories set in a galaxy far, far away. Now they're all sort of trying to be Star Wars. I feel like the easiest example of that is probably season 1 of The Mandalorian. Like, that is a cowboy show that is set in Star Wars. The 3rd season of that is a Star Wars show that Pedro Pascal happens to be in. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like it's just that.
Okay, so I do love how every conversation we end up having, whether we like something or not, ends in us being like, and I think that the 8-episode season has killed television, inadvertently. And the funny thing is, when you mentioned Interview with the Vampire, you're thinking about TV shows more current TV shows that rejoice in the medium of television, and that they are encapsulated into an episode themselves, and they rejoice in the medium, the serialized medium. I would say, funnily enough, Leslie Headland's other show, Russian Doll, I think does this really well. Each episode, each stands on its own really well, but it's a really compelling piece altogether. And I will also say, and this is getting into a way wider discourse that I saw some people talking about, of like, there was a quote from like Guillermo del Toro, whatever, about how like animation isn't just for kids and it's also for adults, and like, and people were saying like, you know, we could be doing a lot of interesting things in sci-fi and fantasy and stuff if we embrace that, especially for adults. And I was like, and that is why people are turning to anime, not just for sci-fi and fantasy, but also because anime, yes, there are lots of great anime movies, but anime as a television medium has locked fucking down like tight storytelling, much like a multicam sitcom or anything. Like, the format has locked down what works in television, and people like it and watch it for that. I know I talked about Jujutsu Kaisen last week, whatever, and how it has similar issues of we rush through that motherfucker, so we don't really get to spend time with it. But I would say, like, that is why people turn to anime or turn to other things or turn to like an old sitcom or something like that, because I'm like, it's like actual television.
I will say this though, I don't think that the 8-episode season is what's killing TV, because Russian Doll, both seasons are 8 episodes, and Interview with the Vampire, both seasons are 8 episodes. The length to me is not what the issue is. It's that a lot of creatives, and of course the sort of reality behind this is that this has to do more with like the corporate aspect of creating television, do not properly utilize the medium of TV. It's like what Ollie was saying. It's just like, this feels like a movie, like a lot of stuff does at this point, that has just been cut sort of at random and been like, here you go, right? Interview is 8 1-hour-long episodes, and every single minute of those episodes is used to tell a story that eventually comes together. But like Severance, I think on Apple TV, which just got its 2nd season trailer today, when we're recording this, that also I think was like 8 episodes or maybe 10. But it's like, you have to.
I feel like they need a better term that's not. You're right. Like, the 8-episode season is not, because
it's a usage of the medium that is the problem. A lot of people who are making TV, who want it to be profitable, don't seem to understand that like a movie would be better for certain stories. That's the whole concept of like the medium is the message, right? Like okay, Robert Eggers is making a Nosferatu movie, which by the way, I'm actually so fucking sad for. I have
no, literally,
Nosferatu,
I'm so
girl.
sad.
Oh my god. Anyway, but like.
I'm simply too seated.
Literally, yeah. What's that Io Devery tweet where she's like, I'm already in the theater 8 months early and they're telling me to leave. Like, anyway, but like, that is such a great thing to make as a film. Like, that needs to be a movie. We did not need a limited Nosferatu series, but like, you know, Amy Adams should have been Emmy-winning Sharp Objects, worked best as a TV show. And I just like, I think, and that's also, you know, people are always drawing comparisons to Andor, and I'm like, Andor did not work because its story content was necessarily that much better than a lot of what else is going on in Star Wars, although a lot of it is quite good. It worked because it was designed for TV, and you could really feel that watching it play out. It's like, okay, this story was written with television in mind.
The irony that we're having this conversation about this episode is that I know different people have, like, I'm different than Noah. I think this was one of the better episodes of the series. The issue for me is that it came too late, which is what we were talking about. Like, the pacing, not just of we have too little time, but like the pacing of when we reveal certain information is that it came too late. I like that we saw one viewpoint and then we saw this one. But it definitely felt like it was starting to drag on, and then it was like, okay, now we have this information and we don't know how are we going to deal with that, whatever. And so that's kind of the weird part that's a weird part for me, is that I really like this episode individually, and I was like, yeah, well, because we were just getting into all the stuff with Kamir, and that was interesting. Not just that he's sexy, not that I miss him, but like that stuff was getting interesting. That it was like, wait, we need to go back, and I was like, okay,
yeah. I will also add something I think about that specifically is that it's also like, I would have liked to have seen this story being told as Sol telling it to May. I would have liked for there to be a better framing device so that we could get the context of like who is gaining this information. And like, we can assume it's Sol telling May this story, but like, it would have been nice to be intercut and maybe have the last scene be her reaction being like, oh, fuck you. You know what this would have been really good as? A mid-season finale. Because I say this because I think that in this case, because I do agree that like sometimes when you have 8 episodes or when you have shorter seasons, you can make that work, and I think that's great. But I think the problem is that every show is 8 episodes, and I'm like, I think it's like this show needed to be at least 16 episodes. Because if you had said, if you either 16 20-minute episodes or 8-hour-long episodes, I don't think that we can convey the information that we want in 8 20-minute episodes. So that would be like 160 minutes. Like, that is too short of a time to tell the story they're trying to tell. Unless they wanted to cut a bunch of stuff and then have it be a movie. But I'm like, this would have been a great mid-season finale. And I would have also loved to see, if this was an hour episode, Sol telling this story to May. Cut Tafkak, the artist formerly known as Kamir, telling his version of like where he's from, how he met May, etc. to Osha. Have those be like interwoven, and then have the culmination be the two of them suddenly feeling like they have this new perspective.
Yeah, I think that your point about like the problem being all TV shows are 8 episodes is really astute, because like, yeah, you do kind of have to carefully design your narrative to work in that constraint of time, which this was not. And yeah, I think, that's one of my biggest gripes about this episode is it's like, it's kind of super important that we know like how May feels about all this. And by delaying it by an episode, by next week, I'm not going to really care about any emotions that I might have felt during this episode. It's been 7 full days. Like, I got work, you know what I mean? And I'm saying that semi-jokingly, but I am kind of serious. Like, the impact of a reveal like that is on the characters. The audience already knew the Jedi did something super fucked up because they've been telling us that since episode 1, that they were being shifty about it. So what matters is that the characters are learning this. And like, that would be interesting. But instead, we're going to have to wait 7 calendar days and then come back and then have Sol be like, so that's it. Like I mentioned last week, I did this. And then May's going to be like, interesting. And like, yeah, I agree that a mid-season finale would have been a great place for this, because it leaves so many like lingering questions as an audience member, which are kind of less fun to ask when you remember there's only one probably 45-minute episode remaining in the entire season. Like, we have to wrap all of this up. Like, what, like Claudia was saying earlier, like, what even is the point of all this?
No, and what's really sad to me is that Leslie Headland, whenever she has talked in an interview, you can tell the amount of thought that has gone into this, and detail and backstory for each of these characters and world building, because she knows so much about Star Wars that is going into it. And I feel like they are like holding her back. I'm like, let her cook. Let her cook. Like, Jesus, you gave her 8 episodes. Let her fucking cook. And I will say I'm happy to see that the show is doing quite well on Disney Plus. I believe it is like the second most watched Disney Plus show other than Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's over The Mandalorian. We love that. So maybe in another season we'll get more episodes or something like that. It's doing really well. Shout out to the power of Manny Jacinto. Also, you can cut this out. I just want to say he pronounced his name the other way, and I felt very vindicated. Manny Jacinto.
Yeah,
I was like,
that.
yes!
I saw that.
Yes!
Okay, you
cut
win
that out.
this time.
Yes! But it definitely feels like, oh, they are holding her back, and it like, and you can tell, and it's very like, I know Ollie said that like some shows should be 8 episodes and some shows shouldn't. I feel the same way about like franchises, whatever, of like, some intellectual properties, some universes, some storytelling, they lend themselves to this kind of thing. Star Wars lends itself to this kind of thing, and others don't. We're just fucking sick of it for everything because everybody's trying to do that. And it's like, not everybody needs to do that. Some universes, just maybe one story works here. Not everything lends itself to it. Like, a lot of Marvel, whatever, it does lend itself to it. Are they doing it well? No, but that's a story for another day. But that's the thing, is like, we're fucking tired of it because they do it for everything. And it's the same thing with like the 8-episode season. For example, with the 8 episode, like, I was thinking about this with Doctor Who, of like, I have a lot of thoughts about the current season of Doctor Who that I won't get into. But British TV it was pretty normal for a season to be like 15 episodes. And not like the US TV 22 to 25 episode network TV that suddenly got cut down to 8 because we got streaming. And British TV was able to like tell a fucking story in those like 15 episodes. And I'm like, you know, where is that? Where is that? Not to praise the British or anything. Christ. Not to praise them or anything, but like, that is possible. They also have the issue of like, they don't often have writers' rooms. They'll just have one bitch who will write every episode. But that's a problem for another day. Anyway, we've got
what are they, Dave Filoni?
No, literally, it was the British. The British is the problem. Mal, what's your thesis on the current state of television that you would like to give?
Wish I cared more.
You know what? I wish I cared less. Can we trade?
I'm sorry. I'm too busy reading books and enjoying my life. I can't. TV right now is pissing me the fuck off. So I'm staying in my lane. I'm reading my little books and I'm moving.
I will
on,
say
pushing.
the only kind of internet content I'm currently enjoying is whenever Melvin posts about a book. I don't even like always know what book it's about when I'm sitting there. Like, you'll post on like your Instagram story and you're like, book review, and I'll literally sit there at my desk like headphones on and I'm like, yeah, hold on. I have to listen to Melvin talk about a book.
All that being said, I do agree that I found this episode enjoyable, despite the fact that I think it was a weird place to put it, and despite what, you know, we've sort of talked about. I did find this episode good. I think, once again, the acting in this show is very good. And I also I really appreciate the commitment to the aesthetic of it. And I think that there's also something very interesting to be said about how, like, the Jedi all have these, like, yellowish, warm-colored robes, and the Coven has these dark, rich blues, and how that color contrast just looks really cool. And it's like, even though this is a Star Wars show, when they pulled out their lightsabers, I was like, whoa, those don't feel like they should be here. Like, there was a lot of storytelling visually going on that I really liked. But yeah, and I would say I am still interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see how this resolves, mostly because I'm just curious. You know, unfortunately, I wouldn't say that I'm quite on the edge of my seat, but I am looking forward to the ending. I'm a little concerned vis-a-vis Vernestra Rowe, because I'm like, why is she here? Like, can we give her more to do? I'm really hoping that this is not like the end of the character. Like, I hope this is not like she's about to die in the finale, because if this was the end of her,
Can you imagine?
it would not make me I would become like a Leslie Headland auntie. Anyway, but that's kind of my final thoughts. I think it was it wasn't fun, but I thought it was a good episode. I just hope the show manages to pull itself together by the end.
I did like the level of nuance that was in it, and how it was like not the Jedi the institution, but Soul specifically was in the wrong, but also we have this like very specific thing of Mother Aniseya being like, no, I choose, I want to let my child make her own choice. Like, it felt very powerful that we had like those two sides here, even though it went to shit, and the level of nuance that people are not appreciating nor understanding, unfortunately. And I like that. I like that Leslie tried. People might not get it, but she fucking tried. And I do love how they addressed it. They were like, oh, are they Night Sisters or whatever? When they were like, Night Sisters don't raise younglings, I'm like, well, the girls, they do. Well, I guess, is Marin fucking chop liver, I guess?
The boys get to play outside.
I don't know.
like, what the issue with that is.
Yeah, the girls just they don't spring out of the ground fully formed. Like, Ventress definitely was a child at one point.
I guess my final thoughts on this is, like, yeah, like Ollie, I wouldn't say that I'm on, like, the edge of my seat. I would say that I'm edging towards it. Like, I'm definitely edging, like, towards being interested.
Oh, that's a cool Midnight Horizon reference.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, I voiced my criticisms of it already. I thought it was a lot of, like, fine. I will say, and I really can't praise this enough, I think this is one of the best looking Star Wars shows that we've ever gotten. I feel like Ollie was saying too, like, the colors between the Jedi and the witches was really, really pretty. I also liked
the fight choreo.
The fight choreo was
was crazy.
Was quite good. I also liked the sort of, like, mysticism that I felt with it. I feel like so often the Force in Star Wars is fully treated like, every character's like, it's not a power that Jedi have, but then, like, everyone uses it as a power that Jedi have. So, like, I thought it was cool that they did a little singing circle and possessed somebody and, like, can turn into vape clouds and fly away. I think we should have more of that in Star Wars. So I liked that. I liked that Mother Aniseya was mothering. I liked that Charlize Theron was mothering. I feel like, I don't hate this show by any stretch of the imagination. It's not Book of Boba Fett where every episode I'm like, well, that was the worst thing I've ever watched. Like, it's just, I think for me, a lot of it is just okay. And I think that's somehow more frustrating because I feel like it had the potential to be more than just okay. And it's not. It's like, all right, well, that's sort of the easiest way you could have gone about that narratively and thematically. And that's what you did. So, yeah, I don't know. I do like the premise of Russian Doll being in. I forgot that Leslie Headland made that show. So now I'm like, oh my God, Nadia, where are you? Get in here, girl.
Welcome to Name That Ship. This is a segment in our podcast wherein one of the hosts has searched the dark recesses of the internet to find fan fiction that either has just a truly inspired concept or some kind of crack ship that they need to make the other host, name that ship. Just as a reminder, you can submit fan fictions if you see something in the wild. That's in our show notes. But today I have found some fan fictions. Are we all ready? The name of this fan fiction is Open My Chest and Color My Spine. The additional tags are ice skating, figure skating AU, prompt fill, rare pair, character A argues with everyone the pronoun of this person likes, it's science. And it's just one character A / character B.
Okay, so this is an ice skating AU. Okay.
Correct.
Han Solo.
Not Han Solo.
I would love to see Han Solo on ice skates. That would be hilarious.
Yuri on ice, but it's Han Solo. I don't know.
Who else? It's just two Han Solos.
No, it's Han Solo and Luke Skywalker.
Or Lando. Why not
I
Lando?
think that Leia would fujoshi out to Lando and Hondo. Lando and Hondo. Well, I mean.
Whoa. Wait. Have we just unlocked something kind of good?
Anyway, okay.
Leia fujoshiing out is so.
Okay. She kind of is though. Like, Leia is always fujoshiing out. I can't be wrong about this fact. Okay, is it two men that are on the ice skates?
No.
Is it two women?
Is it two women?
It is two
this
women.
This two is Yuri.
Ooh,
okay,
yippee,
let's get into it.
Yuri.
Yeah.
Our Himadanshi era.
This is literally Yuri on ice.
It's literal Yuri on ice.
That is correct. Okay, are either of them a Jedi?
No, not technically.
Are they force sensitive?
Force sensitive?
I don't know.
Okay, was one of them a Jedi at one point?
Maybe. I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh.
So
one of them is force sensitive.
Yes.
Okay, only one.
Only one of them.
Why was it like Ventress? I feel like we know that she was a Jedi.
I know, because now I'm trying to think of characters that, like, their history is kind of, like, unclear.
Well, Well,
Is
not
it- is
unclear. Unclear to me, perhaps.
Oh.
So you don't know. Fake fan. Okay.
So this
Yeah.
Is it Legends? Is it like a Legends character?
I love the idea that this is like Mara Jade and someone like good for her, honestly. Okay. I guess
Okay.
maybe let's try and guess the second character then. Would these characters have they interacted in canon before? Okay, I see that I've also asked a question. that you
Is
don't
one
know
of
the answer.
these
So it's possible, but they haven't.
It's possible. I know for a fact that one of the characters has interacted with someone that the other character is related to.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
this Sabine Wren?
One of them is Sabine Wren.
Fuck. Okay. I forgot about her entire plot in Ahsoka,
So
and I
wait,
just
yeah.
remembered
that,
it all
that,
at
was,
once.
that was the problem. I don't know if is she a Jedi? Is that what
Yeah.
they were saying? Okay. So she is a Jedi.
So it's Sabine Wren and another person, another woman.
And a
Yes.
girl.
Yes.
So it would be
Jyn
somebody
Erso.
who...
not Jyn Erso.
So it would be somebody who has interacted with her family, the Mandalorians, or the Rebels characters.
Rebels characters.
Okay.
Or wait. No, her family. No, Sabine has interacted with this character's family members.
Okay, so is it... Are these characters... The first time we see them, was it in a movie or a TV show? Or this character?
Movie.
Movie. Rogue One?
Is this
No.
Han Solo?
No.
Is it the original trilogy?
Yes.
Leia Organa.
Yes,
No.
it is Leia Organa.
She's met Leia.
This is
They
not a rare pair!
interacted.
This is not a
Yeah.
rare pair!
This is
don't
pretty
remember
common.
Yeah,
There's a
but
Forces of Destiny short where they flirt with each other.
But they're on ice skates in this one,
I
so
see,
it's
I
different.
couldn't
Also, okay,
remember.
what the
But
wait,
it's
hold
also
on, hold on. What the hell is going on with the title? If this is the show, like, can we talk about this?
That's what I'm
Color
saying.
my spine.
How long is it? Like, what's the premise?
Oh, the title is from Wolves Without Teeth by Of Monsters and Men.
Oh,
So that's
out of curiosity, what
context.
year did this fic come out?
2017.
Yeah, no,
that
that
makes
sounds
sense.
about right for that
Yeah.
band being mentioned.
Okay, well, I love that. I love
Sabine and
that.
Leia is actually a favorite of mine.
No,
It's
I'm
a
like
pretty
literally,
good
this is
one.
my icebreaker. This one is called Stuck in the Middle.
Is this
Is
a
this a
volleyball?
Challengers AU?
It's not Challengers
Oh.
AU, even though I would love to see a Challengers AU with these characters. So it is a polycule. It's character A, character B, or character A/character B/character C, character A/character B, character B/character C, character A/character C. Additional tags: handcuffs, bad BDSM etiquette, trapped. Tumblr prompt, rating to be safe. This is mostly just soft. Polyamory, characters A's questionable sense of humor, implied sub character C, implied dumb character A or character B. This is about sex, but it doesn't include sex.
Okay.
Load in Great Storm.
No, I wish.
Would Loden Greatstorm be
Damn
the
it.
implied dom or the implied sub?
Exactly.
I think it
Implied
depends
sub.
on what you're into.
Well,
I
Okay,
feel
wait.
like you
I
can do
could top
whatever.
him, I think.
is this a mix of genders?
No,
Are they all
They're
men?
all men or all women?
they're all dudes.
Ooh, let's fujoshi
Sausage
it out.
Party. Okay. Are these characters from the movies?
Some of them are.
Okay. Are they from different movies or are some of them in the same movie?
I believe the ones that are from the movies are in movies together
Okay.
almost exclusively.
Do
Okay,
any of
so-
these characters already interact or already shipped with
Yes.
each other normally?
Is one of
Yes.
them Luke Skywalker?
All three?
One of them is Luke Skywalker.
Is he the implied sub?
Okay.
He's the implied dom.
Sorry. I shouldn't laugh.
No, I think
is one of them
not.
Han Solo?
Yes, and he is the implied sub.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay, wait. I'm back on board
I'm
now.
sorry.
That makes sense.
Is it Lando?
No.
So
Is this a character from something else?
Yes.
is it Ezra Bridger?
No.
I don't know. He's the same
Ezra
age.
Bridger slash
Sorry.
Ezra Bridger slash Han Solo is kind of crazy.
Thinking of Ezra Bridger as a sexual creature is just kind of scary to me. So sorry, that's why I made that face.
The one good part of the Ahsoka series is that we get to see Ezra Bridger in live action as an adult, and he is very sexy. Unfortunately, they did nothing with him.
Well, okay. Okay, so we're guessing. I'm sorry, I lost track during all the shipping in the beginning. Are there two other characters or one other character?
There's one other character, and the one tag that's related about him is his questionable sense of humor.
Okay, but this is not
Hondo Honaka.
Not Hondo
so.
Honaka,
Okay, so but this is
God.
a character that is not from the original trilogy movies.
Correct.
Okay, around the do they appear at all around the same time or no?
In the same time period, yes.
Okay.
Is
Jedi?
this a character from Rebels?
Not a character from Rebels and not a Jedi.
Galen Erso.
No! God, he's way too old for them. He's ancient. God.
They
Okay,
could be
age
into
gap
older
discourse.
men.
No, because like, oh well.
Well, he's old and dead, so...
Yeah.
Okay, the dead thing might get in the way.
Yeah. Okay. So is the first time we see this character in like Rogue One or Solo, or we see them in the
No.
prequels?
I never said that they were in a movie.
Yeah, are they from a book? Is it Eli Vanto?
It's not Eli Vanto. That would be crazy.
He is also a
Is
little
it
old, but
who's
that's
the
okay.
chiss guy with the big tits? Is it him?
Samacro? No, it is not
Okay,
Samacro.
wait, I am kind of seated. If someone wants to write that, I will read it. Samacro and a polycule. Now we're fucking cooking with gas.
Well, it's, okay.
So is this a character from a book?
I never said
They're
that.
from a video game.
So is it-
I
character
know, that's
from a
why
TV
I'm
show.
asking.
No, it's a
TV
TV
show.
show.
Is it
So Clone Wars or Rebels?
No.
Is it from Mandalorian?
Is
Yes.
it Din Djarin?
Why was I like, what's that guy's name?
It is Din Djarin.
I can't believe I thought I said that, but then I think I
No.
didn't. I just
No, you
imagined it in
didn't.
my head. Tell me why I was gonna say that guy with the earring from that one episode of The Mandalorian.
The fuck?
You remember?
Shut up! Not fucking tiny meat gang member.
Yeah, what is his name?
Fuck if I know.
that?
Odeco?
Season 1 of The Mandalorian, there's that guy who has the earring and he goes to hunt
Oh,
Fennec
Toro
Shandrick.
Calican.
Toro Calican. Why was I gonna guess him? That's so stupid. Anyway.
Anyways, do you guys want to hear the summary of this?
I would
fanfic?
love
Yeah.
nothing more.
I feel like I've
This is
not to out my reading habits, but I feel like I think I've not read this but seen it in my travels.
I just realized I can't invite Claudia if I ever get married because she'd be fujoshing out the entire time, and I just can't have that at a professional setting.
I think we all would be. It's okay.
all of us. Who is all of us?
Thank you, Mel, for saying you wouldn't be fujoshing out at my gay wedding.
So the summary is: it had been a long week of diplomacy for Din on Mandalore, stuck in a stuffy boardroom with Bo-Katan and other people much more politically minded than himself. He was excited to see his little family again after missing them every single day he was away. Still, he was surprised to find Luke immediately after going into their house, naked, left hand stuffed inside the kitchen sink.
We have definitely
Okay,
talked about this fanfiction
Okay,
before.
I'm
like I've
sorry,
seen
you
this.
guys. The kitchen sink was not where I thought his left hand was going to be when he started that part of the sentence. Oh my god. Something is so wrong with me. I was like, okay, so he's using Han Solo as a hand puppet. Like,
Hand puppet on Solo. Hand puppet Solo.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this week for RuPaul's Pod Race and our coverage of the Acolyte. Keep an eye on your podcatcher of choice for new episodes every week. We are going to do the finale, and then we'll also do a wrap-up of the whole season 1 series. We don't know. Who knows? As a quick reminder, we are trying to raise money for a family to escape Gaza. We are trying to get them to 10K. They're very close. The link to their fundraiser is in our show notes, so donate or pass it around. If you want updates, Star Wars news, more cursed shit, if any of our episodes are delayed, you will find out first on our social media, which is Instagram, Tumblr, TikTok, or Twitter at RuPaul's Pod Race. Want to ask us a question? Send it to our Tumblr Ask Box or email us at RuPaul'sPodRace@gmail.com. If you really love the show, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a comment on our YouTube channel. We're on YouTube now. Or tell a friend about the podcast. It really helps. If you'd like to hear more from us, you can hear Jess as one of the cast members on the High Republic Tabletop RPG podcast for Light and Dice, and they will be back to this show, don't worry. And you can listen to me and Ollie on the Mystery Spotcast, where we recap all of Supernatural so that you will not watch it. Please don't watch it. Just listen to the Mystery Spotcast. And link to both of those podcasts is in our show notes. May the Force be with you, and don't kriff it up.
Waka waka.
Waka waka.